Welcome to another edition of Eye on the Issues. And as we get ready for the legislative session to begin in Wyoming, we're talking to another lawmaker, House District 27 Representative Martha Lawley. Thanks for taking the time. Representative, how are you today?
I'm doing great today, Mike. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to share.
We're just days away from the session starting. What are you most looking forward to?
In a way, I'm most forward to looking to getting started. You kind of get to a point, you prepare, you've got your bills ready, and you're like, okay, let's do this thing. So I think I'm look beyond that. I would say optimistic about the session. I'm excited about certain things in the session, opportunities I see to do some things in conservative policy and work on them in a way that gets the policy right, has legally defensible language, will stand up, hopefully in court if it's challenged. Those kinds of things are what I'm interested in. So I see some real opportunities to have some conversations about that and hopefully come to some agreements on things that I think really matter to the Wyoming people.
And in respect to issues, which issues are we going to jump at first, do you think, as the session begins?
As we begin the session, I think that's somewhat still being determined, the timing on things. But I think we are going to see an attempt to respond to things that we've all heard on doorsteps as we knocked on doors during the campaign. And I'm encouraged by that. I think we were going to see certainly some election integrity bills to shore up and make sure our elections are as safe as they can be in Wyoming. One of my concerns about that issue is just that we make sure the policy actually accomplishes the stated goal and that it is secure and that we have a sense of integrity about how our elections are happening in Wyoming. So you see some things about that. I think for me, the top things I want to see, and I think will be seen early in the session, is things that center around privacy, safety. So for me, I've got some bills, for example, on boys not playing in girls' sports at the collegiate level. And so I'm amending the sports bill to address that issue. And that was something I heard consistently on doorsteps when I was going door to door. It was very interesting to me and a little bit surprising that this idea of just get the boys out of the girls' sports was a common theme, even beyond, I would say, property taxes, although we heard about property taxes and we will certainly be addressing those. But I would also hear, secondly, from them, and also, by the way, could you keep the boys out of the girls' restrooms? So I have a bill on that as well, women's privacy bill that goes beyond just restrooms, but to locker rooms, changing rooms, overnight trips that schools would take. It also includes the collegiate world and dorm assignments and all those sort of things. And then it also includes women's prisons. So I like to say if we're going to address an issue and it's important and we feel like that it's something that we should do and we're clear about it. And this is where the Wyoming people have been so clear in their minds about this isn't that hard. And so I feel like if that's the truth and that's how the people of Wyoming feel, we need to take the time to carry that policy all the way through, have a sense of clarity and consistency, and quite frankly, just common sense. So I have some bills about those things because that's what I heard most on the campaign trail. I have another one on protecting children online. So I guess one of my themes for the session is protecting privacy and safety, and also securing fairness in women's sports, because these things matter to the Wyoming people. And I want to work hard and not only just addressing the issue and say, well, I had a bill about that. I really want to be able to say, I worked hard with my colleagues and collaborated with them to get the very best policy, have legally defensible language if the law is challenged. And so that's kind of been my focus, and I'm looking forward to it because I think we have a very good environment to accomplish those goals.
And so you must have been pleased to hear the Title IX decision handed down recently in respect to women's sports.
Yes, it was the right decision. And it should have been made earlier perhaps, but it was the right decision. We're going to be seeing, I think, a continuation of this kind of ruling, not just in the Title IX era, but many since the Supreme Court overruled the Chevron doctrine, which was really an impediment and allowed unelected bureaucrats to make unreasonable regulations that Wyoming faced not only in Title IX, but in the area of the BLM and energy policy. And so there's going to be a shift And then we have, in addition to that, a change of administration, which would have created its own kind of shift. But the overturning of the Chevron policy has so many important implications for Wyoming to have some clarity and certainty too going forward about, and we fought back hard in every one of these areas, but we were going upstream in many ways. So I'm very excited of where we are in terms of interacting on these federal issues and as a state and being able to more stand up for ourselves and to decide for ourselves. Because again, one person suggested I didn't need the bill anymore, maybe because of this court decision. I said, oh, absolutely not. It is Wyoming's not only right, but responsibility as a state to decide for themselves where they stand on this issue, regardless of
Sure.
what the federal government says.
Now you're on, of course, the House Education Committee. One thing I wanted to ask you about is school choice.
Yes, I am excited to be back on the Education Committee. I already served there 2 years. I really asked to be in both committees that I previously served on. I'll be vice chairman of education, actually, and I am a proponent of school choice, and some of the best choices need to be in the public system. That's why I support charter schools strongly, and for more opportunities through our public education in the area, for example, of career and technical education, so CTE. So ways we can do it there. But beyond that, I also supported the educational savings account. We will be coming back. I think we're going to have the opportunity to do some really good things there. And to me, it's important in timing because we have in Superintendent Dagenfelder a good partner, again, to put that policy into place in a kind of way that it would be a little bit harder to displace if we had someone else in that seat that maybe wasn't as uh, favorable to education savings accounts. So I do support those as a vehicle to give parents choice. There's not a one size fits all for education. And we need to reflect that in Wyoming and see that these other options are beneficial, not only to parents and students, but to the state as well.
And you're also, of course, on the Minerals Business and Economic Development Committee. What do you see coming across your plate there?
Um, Again, I served on that committee. We worked really hard in this interim on a number of bills. But I would say the number one issue coming out of minerals is our bonding bill that we have coming out of minerals. Worked on that work group. The only ones that are still in the chamber that were voted on it were I and Senator Rothfuss, and on the Senate side. But we worked really throughout the interim as a work group with industry on that bill. And I am very proud of that work and really excited for what it means to the oil and gas industry more broadly. And I'd say for me, that's the number one thing coming out of minerals. What we may see some other things, some of the other bills, we're just working through some policy discussions we need to have. And for me, I feel like that it's very healthy to have some policy debates. To me, I really value all the discussions we all had about unity. I really believe that we should have unity as a body, but unity and uniformity are not the same. And I think these discussions are really important. As conservatives, we should never be afraid of having these conversations. We should never, label or try to bypass them. Let's have them. Let's see what can emerge together. So I think we're going to see some things out of minerals that are going to provide some good conversations. The idea of the storage of nuclear unspent fuel, whether that's a good choice for Wyoming or not. Even just the idea of the opportunities we have in nuclear energy, even if there were arrangements to store any unspent, waste somewhere else. These are really important policies for Wyoming. I am a big supporter of nuclear energy as one of the things in the future, but my primary attention is focusing on protecting our legacy energy industries in Wyoming and making sure that we create an environment where they can thrive here in Wyoming. And we're very blessed with what we have as energy resources here. We need to steward those.
Yeah, very good point. And how do you make that decision when it comes to the possibility of nuclear waste storage? How do you make that decision whether it's good or not for
Yeah,
Wyoming?
that's a great question, Mike. I would say, first of all, let's get the facts. This is just the way I sort of problem solve. Let's make sure I understand the facts and maybe separate out some fiction, some fears that might be in there that are unfounded. And what are the fears that might be not unfounded, that might have a reason to be concerned about? I think that's what we do first. We educate and we learn. One of the things sometimes that is not in this discussion is the role of the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Wyoming has some primacy in the area of nuclear, which they've worked hard for, and I'm proud that we have it because ultimately, when opportunities come, we can here in Wyoming better manage and regulate in a streamlined way. So and that's important to learn that in Wyoming and do that. But I think we just need to get the facts and really know, separate fact from fiction, fear from reality, and then make some decisions about really what's best for Wyoming. Um, and I don't know I honestly have not gathered enough information. I do know the nuclear regulatory process, even for getting any siting permission for that, to do it, is very extensive. So I'd like to know more about that, for example, and say, well, let's see if in there provide some of the protections that I would agree we need to be certain about. We don't need to guess about those. So that's kind of how I would go about it. Just basic problem solving. Let's make sure we have the facts before we decide, so that when we approach the problems of this, we're solving the right problems. We're discussing the right and most important things for Wyoming.
And let's talk for a moment, if we can, about the future of coal. Obviously, coal is a huge industry in your state.
Yeah. Well, I think the future of coal is something that really is a very big issue because it has so many different implications in state revenue, as well as jobs, good jobs, as the health of communities, and Wyoming has an abundance of coal. My hope is we can continue to push forward with good policies that help the coal industry survive. The issue we have to face head on, in my view, is that we don't get to control the conditions of the market. So we have to help them kind of do what they need to do in some ways to meet those consumer demands. And sometimes that's even working on those demands from where they're coming from and whether or not that's a good demand. But they get to decide whether they buy Wyoming coal or not. But there's a real market for Wyoming coal internationally. Powder River Basin coal is clean, great coal, but we have a problem right now getting it out to the markets. Like all of the West Coast coal shipping areas basically don't allow us to come in for their environmental concerns. So I'm really hoping that is something that we can get the Trump administration to get involved in and open those up, because quite frankly, there is a great market for Wyoming coal outside the United States, and we need to tap into that market. And so that would be a big move for our coal industry. But, I always believe too, Mike, that when you're trying to help an industry or even any group in Wyoming, the people of Wyoming, it is always important to go to them and say, just ask the basic question, how could we help? What are some things that you see that the legislature has a role in? And I think that's conversations we're having now with all of our industries. I know during this interim, that was a lot of the way we approached some issues. So we've done coal bonding bills as well in the past. We continue to do things, and we will support our coal industry. I love the fact that University of Wyoming School of Energy Resources in particular has really taken on some incredible research in non-burning uses of coal. I have on my desk in the legislature a brick that's made by coal. It's amazing. In a certain amount of water, it'll float. But they've built little houses there. They've done a lot of research on this, and they're about to scale up in the making of those for commercial purposes. So that's so interesting. Asphalt is a big one, using coal to make asphalt, that they've now are scaled up to start making that. And the Wyoming Department of Transportation has already said we will buy that because it has a lot of benefits that you don't have with oil-based products for making asphalt. So these are really creative things that we're doing in Wyoming because we love and will support our coal industry. So it's not one or the other, it's all of these things that we do because these are our people, these are our industries. This is part of Wyoming's heritage, and I think it will continue to be in the future.
When you look at Wyoming and you look at the bank account that the state of Wyoming has right now compared to what the federal government is dealing with, it's got to be nice to know that you guys are financially sound.
Yes, a lot of people just don't even realize how well those that could came well before me, I can take no credit for, but had a sense of stewardship of this resource and having use it in education. Almost every school was really, if you could say, basically built by coal money, particularly when in the height of the coal. So we have, and I believe in continuing that and being careful and good stewards because we do have a rather volatile revenue stream, which we're always projecting, but and they're based on good numbers, but they're not always correct exactly. So we just have to continue to have a economy and our state revenue system that understands that and keeps us there. And we have a constitutional amendment that requires us to have a balanced budget. I'd love to see that at the national level because I really think that's the beginning of sound fiscal policies. We know we will not spend more than we have, and then the savings issue has to be connected with the realities that we deal with. A lot of the money we have in savings isn't even directly coal money. It's money for things like our self-insured workers' comp program and some of these big accounts that some people will talk about and say, whoa, we understand those are inviolable. They're for a special purpose. But we have money we have set aside specifically to help us with the ups and downs of the revenue stream in Wyoming. I'm proud of that. I can't claim a lot of credit for it, but I will tell you that it has been a really great thing for Wyoming.
If you could compare your attitude heading into this session versus past sessions, I know you've only had a couple, but are you more positive this time around?
Well, I've only had one other term, and I was learning so much, and that as I went, that my hope at that point was just that I not mess up terribly, and that I represent my constituency well because it is such an honor to represent the good people of House District 27. And so I was more focused on that, quite frankly, and just trying to navigate the different things. It is hard, I'll be honest, with a Republican Party that's fractured and has a caucus here, no caucus here, maybe a caucus over there. I found that kind of difficult to navigate, and I often will just tell people I kind of sort of was born with a bent of you're not going to boss me today. I also have a very strong sense of my responsibility to my constituents, and I'm a Republican. I've been a Republican my whole life. I would love to get to the place where we don't have these caucuses, but as long as they exist, I'm going to try to navigate among them. But I can't be part of any caucus because my caucus is my constituency, and it sort of interposes whether it intends to or not on my decision making. And if I join a group that's in telling me this or that, I'll take everyone's input because I do want to learn. I want to know what the issue is really about. And I'm very zeroed in on what are the best solutions. So I go into this session, though, very hopeful, if nothing else, for the fact that I feel like I am more capable now of navigating it, of understanding how I can do that to the benefit of my constituents. Listen, I believe in the legislature. It's one of those unique jobs where if I get it right, the credit belongs to my constituents. If I get it wrong, the responsibility is on me. And so I take that very seriously. Those are the people I love about this. This is the community I grew up in. And so I'm optimistic, though, as we've talked about some of these issues. You can tell they're going to be very important. I think we're going to have no trouble getting these through the House. And I'm going to work really hard on the Senate side. I don't mind going over there and going into the break room and talking to them, and and advocating for my bills and really wanting to answer every question they have. And so I'm looking forward to that. But I think on the House side, I have a lot more optimism about some things being able to happen that weren't able to happen last session, even though I would have liked for them to.
Yeah, I've heard that from others. So I've got to ask you, final question. What do you like most about living in the state of Wyoming?
Oh, Wyoming is just really unique, and it's a place that it really values things that I value. It values family. It values neighbors and relationship with neighbors. I often say we're friends and neighbors first in House District 27, and that way we problem solve because we do have problems, we do have disagreements, but we problem solve from that place of understanding what we have that's valuable in terms of our relationships and the commonality. And so I like that about Wyoming. It's kind of unique to the culture of Wyoming, especially in my district, which is very rural. So small town Wyoming is very much relational, and I love that. I love that about people will say, "I'll come shovel your walks while you're in Cheyenne. Don't worry about it. we'll take care of it. I mean, that is just unique. And so I love that about Wyoming. And I love that it values family and faith. And that's what I love about it. It's beautiful. I mean, everybody knows all the other things. It's a beautiful place. There's fun activities. I live, not far from the Bighorn Mountains, and I can be up there in less than an hour and be on a four-wheeler. And I'm not really a snowmobiler anymore, but you could do that too. A lot of recreation. So there's so much to like in Wyoming. But to me, it always comes back to the people.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. It's an incredible state with incredible people. Representative, thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Hopefully we can reconvene at some point during the session, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, good deal. And so folks, if you want to learn more about Wyoming, just go to wyliberty.org. Thank you again.